I wanted to ask Agnes, being from South Central Alaska and being involved with the corporations as you've been and the tribes, has it been different for you coming from an urban area as a native living here, and how was it in that circumstance going through the process of the Land Claims Act?
Well, I'm not from an urban area. I was born and raised in Tyonek, Alaska. And I had the good fortune during my teenage years to attend school at Edgecombe and rubbed elbows and played sports and music and had a great time with many, many fellow students over a period of some 6 years. And it was so wonderful because I had the opportunity to deal with and have the benefit of the elders from Southeast, so many of my wonderful classmates from up north. And truthfully, none of us are strangers. We're friends to today and through our grandchildren. And I look out here and I can remember my brothers and, oh, so many things. And so I don't feel that I'm an urban person. But Tyonek was fortunate in that it had some good, solid thinkers. And I want you to know that Tyonek was a matriarchal society. My mother was Denina Athabaskan, and her mother was our matriarch. My father was pure Hawaiian, which also happens to be a matriarchal society. So I have no excuses. But Tyonek was thoroughly subsistence. We lived from the fish and the berries and the trees and the birds and so on. Is beautiful, just beautiful. And as I, of course, became acquainted with my friends and neighbors from all around Alaska, we all had many, many things in common. And I agree with Brenda, we were keepers. What we took, we put back and left it in better shape for future generations. And that was a common theme during my school days, and after Tyonek received some settlement monies, Tyonek sent out some visitors to other neighborhoods and villages and so on to find out how we could best help. And there were many needs, but the one common thread was ownership of land. And I'm proud to say that Tyonek did that. Tyonek hosted the first statewide meeting. Tyonek built a couple of buildings, and they loaned office space at no charge for all of those meetings, and helped in every way possible to make the trips necessary to pursue what really was a really swift, really, if we look at it in terms of other people's efforts, it was a swift land claim settlement. And we are today still very, very proud of all of that, and proud of all of the people who essentially set aside their private lives, personal lives, to pursue this very, very lofty goal.
I'd like to move down to the end to Frances, and you're from Unalakleet area. Talk about what the environment was like back then when you were starting to get involved with ANCSA, and how it was communicating and trying to coordinate all of these thoughts and activities with other people who were trying to work on ANCSA at the same time.
Well, growing up in the small Yupik village, Inupiaq, it's a melting pot of the Norton Sound, and we have Athabascans there, about 300 people living there at the time of the claims process. We now have 750 people living there, and we were a very small community. Only way we could communicate was through the fast wire ACS, through the post office, word of mouth. We didn't have but one telephone, and that was in 1964. So, but the thing is, our village council, which is an IRA council, was established in 1934. They were very active and in terms of protecting their membership, because they took their role very seriously. You're a sovereign nation. with recognized by the federal government. So my father was elected to the village council when I was born, and that was in 1943. So I grew up with Native rights, how important our local people are and how far-reaching the future is, but we are a global society. So when he went down to Southeast, he became a member of the Alaska Native Brotherhood, was elected as an officer, but he turned that down. He said, I live too far away. It's too far to communicate. We will establish our own brotherhood. And that's what they did in 1947. So the local elected leaders had their concerns, but yet at the same time were isolated as a small Eskimo village. So what do? You scrape your bucks together. Your council doesn't have any funds. You don't get any money from anywhere. So when War on Poverty showed up, okay, so ASCAP was formed, which Marlene was a part of, and so regional associations were being considered. So the village council said, well, we'll appoint you, we'll get you to represent Unalakleet on the regional local association. And it was called the Inuit Development Corporation. So I served on that in 1968, and my friend Ruby Tansey from Cantwell was very active. She was my roommate at UAF. Wonderful woman. She was very proud, come from a good family. And she's gone. I remember her very well. So that's how it goes. You do the best you can with what you got. We had no money. So the village council just stayed in there strong. And so they got me to be their scribe. I did their writing. And I still write today. But that's how you communicate. Then we got one telephone, then it expanded. Now we have the internet. My father always said this, one day you're going to have total communication just with the tip of your finger. And so there we are. But it was all done with, let's do it together. It's a we thing. When we thrive in the rural areas, the whole state thrives.
Marlene, talk about that lack of money and just the incredible amount of travel that had to occur and the kinds of people that you all were meeting with on a regular basis, you know, the White House all the way down to, you know, Juneau.
We kind of, excuse me, we kind of went both two streams at one time. We had, at the local level, the elders, our respected elders that kind of directed us. They had potlucks and bake sales and whatever to raise money for the land suit. Then we also had the Tlingit and Haida, since they had filed a judgment and we won the judgment in court. And so we ended up having some money and we had to come up with a 6-point plan. I was elected as a delegate along with some of my elders to the council, and I became an executive committee member, and I helped write the 6-point plan that was approved by the Secretary of Interior on how we could spend the money. One of the things that we, at that time, where RuralCap was getting very active, and I see some former employees of RuralCap sitting in the audience, and it was RuralCap had a big role to play with helping all of the regions bring people together. We could bring them together for a meeting of the community action groups, and then when we were done with our OEO business, they could continue meeting and forming AFN. Didn't have a lot of money at all. We didn't get per diem. I think when we started traveling, when we joined AFN and the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act, we would travel and we'd pay, the Central Council would pay our transportation, and we got $24 a day to live on, period. And so things were not like they are today, but we didn't expect any more. A lot of the expenses came out of our own pocket. For people like myself, and I had children at home, and some of them are in the audience, and my grandkids in the audience, they paid the price for some of us for traveling. But it was expected of us. I never thought to say no when my elders said, "You're going to go do this for us." I was like Francis. I took the notes. I wrote the minutes. I wrote the letters that needed to be done for the Alaska Native Brotherhood and the Alaska Native Sisterhood, and we worked together. We joined AFN, and there was some controversy about allowing us to come in because we had already won our judgment case in the courts. But we did have some land that was not included in the judgment, and so we threw that in the pot, plus we had money enough to loan to AFN so that they could have money to operate on and meet. And so I served on the Central Council's Executive Committee for about 20 years, and they were absolutely dedicated. Central Council was absolutely dedicated to helping all of Alaska. And Rural Cap was the same way. We traveled to Washington, D.C., and we got $24 a day to cover everything. So a lot of us didn't gain any weight there because we didn't eat too much. Plus, we could not afford cab fares, so we walked that mall so many times. But it was something that I am honored today to say that I had a part in. It was just absolutely filled your heart, and you saw what was coming. It had nothing to do with money. It was about land. We are a land-based people, and we were there trying to get our land. And today we're still the same way. I'm the former chairman of Sea Alaska and a board member for 20 some odd years, chairman for 10. But today Sea Alaska is still, 40 years later, still trying to get its entitlement allowed to it under Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. They still have 40 million acres. We have the young people that came up from the lower 48 living in the Tongass that say they don't want, us to have any more land. And so we're having to have a fight because we have an entitlement. And so we may end up going to court again. We don't know. But that is how we got started. And let me tell you, Tyonek, we need to thank them for their loan. We need to thank Rural Cap. And we had some friends. And I see one of my friends, Vic Fisher, who was a friend to us. And we had some very fine people that helped us along the way. And we had developed some very young, not so young anymore, leadership. I understand one of them's a professor here and going to retire. He was just a kid. So I'm just happy to be here. I think it's time that we recognize that Alaska Native Land Claims was important to the state of Alaska and to the economic stability of the state of Alaska. And what I'm so proud of when I read in the papers, what the different corporations have done, and Alaska Native Brotherhood and Alaska Native Sisterhood still is active and going. And Christine's here. Her dad, Walter Charlie, was a great A&B member from Copper Center and a dear friend of mine. And these people that never got the accolades, never got their name in the paper all the time. We had a lot of strong people in the background working.